Portman, for holding this important hearing. And thanks to the witnesses for being here today. The SolarWinds attack targeted high-value government and technology networks, and the more recent attack against Microsoft Exchange vulnerabilities victimized many small and medium-sized businesses. In Arizona, the city of Kingman is still recovering from a criminal cyber attack against its computer systems that occurred in late February. This shows how expansive cyber attacks have become and how damaging the results can be, and the amount of time and resources needed to recover. So this is a very timely hearing. The federal government must do more to help communities and entities such as Kingman and to improve its own systems to ensure federal entities have the tools they need to prepare for and respond to future cyber attacks. So my first question is for Mr. DeRusha. We recently heard from the Government Accountability Office about its latest high-risk list, ensuring the cybersecurity of our nation was listed as needing significant attention. What immediate actions will you take as the new Chief Information Security Officer to address outstanding recommendations from GAO and any findings from the investigations into the SolarWinds attack to help agencies better secure federal systems and protect cyber-critical infrastructure and sensitive data?
Well, Senator, thank you for the question. Fortunately, this committee supported giving us a down payment in the American Recovery Plan to start on this crucial work. So with the $1 billion of investment in the Technology Modernization Fund, we're going to be able to start looking at top-down some of the high-risk IT systems across government and start to be really able to tackle some of these persistent long-term challenges that we've been aware of, but just haven't had the resources to address. Also, the monies that are going towards CISA and GSA, we're going to start looking towards developing managed security services where valuable, and also ensuring that we're making investments in the agencies through the annual budget process to fill key capability gaps that we've identified due to the SolarWinds incident. So we've got a lot of work planned, and we're looking forward to working collaboratively with CISA to implement across all of the federal agencies.
Thank you. My next question is for both Mr. Wales and Mr. DeRusha. We are increasingly reliant on interconnected devices and networks that help manage critical areas such as transportation, healthcare, and energy. How can we avoid concentrating cyber attack risk within a more specialized supply chain of manufacturers, software providers, and telecommunication firms? And if we can't, how do we minimize risk across these critical supply chains?
Thank you. So we do a lot of work. I would say at the outset that changing the market is challenging, and in many cases, the reason why there's concentrated risk are market conditions that are largely outside of the federal government's ability to control. But we do try to work hard, particularly with the vendor community who makes a lot of those industrial control systems, the systems that manage critical infrastructure and operate the systems that we all rely upon. We work with the vendor community to strengthen the security that's built into those devices, and we actually have a lot of work focused in the industrial control system space with the owners and operators of those systems to identify what additional protections and security they need to have in place, because cybersecurity of industrial control systems is challenging. It's a unique discipline. If all the workforce challenges we have in the cybersecurity community, they're just magnified a couple of times fold because of the unique nature of industrial control environments. But it is an area that we have a focused effort on. CISA released the strategic plan focusing on securing ICS systems late last year, and we're working now with the White House and DOE and others on additional work to see what we can do to get better insights and provide additional expertise to help secure those systems.
Thank you. My next question is for Mr. DeRusha. OMB's federal cybersecurity reskilling program is meant to bring more cybersecurity training to federal employees. However, placing graduates has been a challenge because they often end up qualified for cybersecurity jobs a grade lower than their current position. So what actions do Congress and the administration need to take to ensure that employees who gain these skills are rewarded with a fair salary and appropriate grade level?
Well, Senator, I can just say that I'm aware of that challenge, and it is definitely going to be a priority of our office. within the Office of the Federal CIO to work with Office of Personnel Management to explore all of the current hiring authorities and incentives that we have in place and ensure that agencies are using them and understand how to use them. So you can expect that we will absolutely be prioritizing this.
Thank you. My next question is for Mr. Wales. Mr. Wales, a key way to combat a cyber attack is effective information sharing, but we continue to hear from some private sector entities about frustrations that they are expected to share information, but the federal government is slow to reciprocate. What are your recommendations for incentivizing companies to notify the federal government when their networks are compromised, and how is CISA working to improve its information sharing back to the private sector?
Sure, thank you for that. And I'll start by saying that we actually have received from companies that have come forward recently to us and to the federal government. It is, and I want to thank those companies because, frankly, cybersecurity requires a collective defense, and we're only successful if people are willing to come forward and work with us. I would also say that we have worked hard over the past year to improve the speed at which we can provide back actionable information when we receive information from the private sector. And again, it may not be information back to that same company, but the information that they provide is going to raise everyone else's baseline. So when we receive information from a company, we're then going to share that in an anonymized way more broadly so that other companies are not victimized in the same way. And I think both the SolarWinds case as well as Microsoft Exchange vulnerabilities, the time at which we were notified about an incident and provided information from potential victims to the speed at which we were able to get information out broadly, publicly, is now measured in hours and days and not weeks and months. And so that is where I'm focusing our efforts because I think it's the place where we can have the greatest impact. And because of, and the value proposition back to those companies is that today you're sharing this information, but tomorrow you're going to want other people to share information so that you can benefit from it, so that you're not victimized by the next cyber attack because someone else is sharing information with the federal government, allowing us to get it all out, allowing us to enable this collective defense.